Okay, so for a long time, I actually just assumed that, every African country had Pidgin. I just didn't realize that, not every country did. And I think this is a common thing with Nigerians because I've been told that we are kind of like the Americans of Africa. We tend to think of ourselves as the center of the universe and we don't know that much about other countries, or not as much as they know about us, which honestly seems fair. And the first time I realized that was when there was this Angolan kid at the school I went to when I was like 17, and he was like, yeah, I don't understand Pidgin. I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, I don't. Also, you guys tend to speak really fast when you speak Pidgin, so it's kind of hard for me to catch it. But anyway, Pidgin English is something that I've thought a lot about. Fela and Lagbaja have this song called Vernacular, and I remember listening to that song over and over again and thinking about how like the things they were saying are actually true. Like they are not lying in the song. Basically, they talk about how our mother tongues, like native Nigerian languages, are thought of as vernacular, whereas English is thought of as a proper language. Obviously, this is something that came from colonization, yeah. But they were saying that even in the hearts and minds of Nigerians, there are people who feel like their native language is inferior to the English that the colonizers came to impose. Now, of course, that song was written a while ago, but it probably still rings true in a lot of ways. And I think we understand that this is the case for obvious reasons. Like the colonizers really finished work when it came to mentally taking a hold of the people and imposing a huge inferiority complex, right? So anyway, remember that grand awakening that I spoke about in that video I made about Nigerian music and why it is amazing? If you don't remember it, this is me shamelessly plugging that video. Yes, go and watch it. But it was around that time that I started really thinking about and saying things like Pidgin English in a very different way. Anyway, attitudes towards Pidgin English haven't always been great, There are a lot of people, as Fela and Lagbaja said in the song, who feel like their vernacular is inferior. I remember that when I was a child, my dad actually did not like us speaking Pidgin English at all. Like, he didn't let us, right? And I understand why, of course. And I know a lot of people's parents did this, but they wanted us to learn how to speak proper English, which I get. And we never spoke it or anything, so much so that my dad was actually shocked, like, recently, when my brother was like speaking Pidgin, right? And he was like, I didn't know you know how to speak Pidgin like this. Like, I think I was kind of looking at him like, who raised this child? Like, where is all this Pidgin coming from? Because I know I made sure that these kids did not speak Pidgin when they were younger. I mean, obviously they're fine with it now. I think it was just like during our formative years. They just didn't want that to interfere with our English. Anyway, there was this day, like maybe 2-3 years ago, I was with my mom and we're talking about Pidgin and everything. And like, she would speak Pidgin to me, but I would respond in English because I'm scared she would slap me. I mean, obviously she won't. Like, that was when we were way younger. But like, we were talking and she said something. And then she said something and I was like, hold on, would you actually be okay with me speaking Pidgin to you? And she's like, of course. What do you mean would I be okay? It's Pidgin, like it's our of course, right? And I was like, oh, that's good to know. And I was like, and I hear you and I understand that, but still something in me has just been hardwired. I find it difficult to speak Pidgin to my mom because I feel like a slap is coming because she'd have slapped me when I was 5. But that's neither here nor there. Moving back to Pidgin. I do remember when Wazobia FM came out, right, and became a thing. I remember loving it so much because it was so authentically Nigerian, and I don't know what it is about me that I just love things like that, but I do. But I remember just being so enamored by it, right? It was very unapologetically ours. They leaned into our culture and colloquialisms and just, they made no apologies for how deeply Nigerian they were, and they did all this using Pidgin English. And I remember that particularly it was a breath of fresh air for me because one thing that had always scratched my soul was all these radio stations and how like, the hosts would have like British accents. And I was a child, but I always wondered, I was like, but why are they talking like that? Like, I don't understand. Like, it's a Nigerian radio station. Like, why am I hearing British accents? And it always upsets me and my homegirl because I was like, I don't understand it. Like, when I watch American movies, the American radio hosts have American accents. They don't start talking to you in my accent. The radio station is for the Nigerian people bar, so let's say be for the people. Why the accents? But anyway, Wazobia came to rectify the situation and it was so amazing. And I remember just loving how listening to the news on Wazobia was literally just like listening to somebody gisting you. It was very sweet to me. Now, it's not new information that speaking Pidgin has been looked down upon in a lot of places because it's thought of as something that only people who are uneducated speak, right? But it wasn't until that grand awakening that I mentioned in that video you should go and watch that I deeped these things and I was like, nah, like, it's Pidgin English or our native languages are inferior by whose standards? The colonizers, like, there's no reason why we should look down on it. The thing I've always loved about Pidgin is that you have a people whose culture, you know, the colonizers came to steal, kill, and destroy, and water down, and all that kind of stuff. And because these people still have strong head, even when they were forcing English upon them, they still took it and turned it into something that was their own in a sense. You know, they made a pseudo language out of it, and they also made it into something that different Nigerians from different parts of the country who speak different languages can use to communicate for the most part. Now I say for the most part because there are different grades of Pidgin. You know, there's Benin Pidgin, there's Warri Pidgin, there's Port Harcourt Pidgin, which is kind of almost like even a Pidgin of Pidgin, which is just a different matter. But anyway, this speaks to the amazing and unfortunate thing about being Nigerian. It's the high level of resilience and resourcefulness that being Nigerian creates in you. High levels of suffering, high levels of resourcefulness, unfortunately. When I deeped it, I was like, nah, it makes a lot of sense that Fela made the decision to stop singing in English in his songs and only sing in Yoruba and Pidgin. The Pidgin aspect was because he wanted to make sure he was including all Nigerians in his music and everybody could understand and partake, at least to some extent. And I think that's sort of the same thing that Wazobia did when they came on the scene and opened Wazobia FM. It's such an amazing radio station, and I absolutely have loved the work they do for years. In every sense of the phrase, it really feels like a radio station for the people because everybody can understand it. And you can tell that you are the audience. They're not trying to cater to anybody else. But anyway, I would honestly recommend listening to that song by Fela and Lagbaja called Vernacular. It's a great song, and it asked and answered a lot of the questions that I started having when I was around 18 regarding our culture and the attitudes and thoughts we have towards it. Like, who said our language, you know, our vernacular is a bad thing? It's not. That sort of stuff. But that's what I have for this video. That was my little rant about Pidgin English. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.